Hello everyone, thank you for joining today's video. Today we are going to actually see a more advanced topic, which is basically an orchestration of an API call. We would have come across occasions where we have to invoke and consume OAuth protected APIs. So before we jump into the demonstration, I'll quickly set the foundation of what the demonstration is going to be about. So let's have a look at what is the use case we're trying to address. So what we will actually be demonstrating is consumption of an OAuth protected service. So the request lands on the gateway and the resource has been defined over here. The gateway in turn makes a call to an OAuth protected endpoint, not an OAuth protected endpoint, an OAuth token service. It actually passes the username, password, basically the client ID, client secret, the grant type, which is client credentials, and returns back a access token. Now, before actually calling the native service, this access token is injected in the header, and in turn, the request is sent to the OAuth protected resource server. So what actually happens is the request that originates from the client doesn't immediately land on the resource server, but instead the gateway forks the request to a token service, calls the token endpoint, gets back an access token, injects in the authorization bearer as a header, and hands off the request to the resource server. This then returns back with the secured information and goes back to the client. So this is an advanced way of actually calling a token endpoint. It's probably not the optimal way because usually the short-lived tokens have a certain expiry and lifetime, which cannot be cached on the gateway, or at least there's no straightforward way to do it without forking the call to an integration server. But what I am going to actually explain over here is to use the gateway directly without actually forking a call to an integration server flow service. So let's jump into the demonstration.
Okay, so today we will actually see how to invoke a service that is protected by OAuth token, short-lived token. So before we check it from the gateway, let's have a look at what are the APIs that we have. So first and foremost, this is a sample OAuth service which I have forked from one of the GitHub projects. I'll share the details in the comment box. So basically, this is an endpoint that you fire a request for with a certain username and password, and it generates a token, a short-lived token, which is valid for 30 seconds. So you can see the token life is expiring. So this is the authorization server, which returns the token. Now this is the, from an OAuth point of view, this is now the resource server, which should actually honor the token. So I've set an invalid token. I'm firing a request. It says token is invalid. So let's go ahead and get a new token. We'll pull it out. We'll put it in over here in authorization bearer. It goes in authorization bearer. Set in the token, fire the request, and it just responds back. Okay. So whatever we put in over here as the query parameter is returned back in the response if the token is validated successfully. So it's just to evaluate that we have a authorization server and we have the source server which actually authorizes the request and responds back. Now, typically, if you were to do this from a client side, you would call the service to get a token, and then you would replay that token in the authorization bearer to the native service. So that's like a two-step call. So what we are actually going to demonstrate is we're going to invoke the gateway service, and within the gateway, it's actually going to kind of orchestrate the call first to the token endpoint, get back a token, and then hand it off to the next service. So let's quickly jump into the gateway and see how this is done. So I'm going to log in on the gateway. I have a skeleton of the API already up and set up. This is just to make it easy to explain the main points. So right now it goes to the same resource server. If I go back to Postman and this is the gateway service OAuth external API, and if I try to execute it, it will continuously say 401 because there is no token over here. Now I can also pull out a token, hand it off in an authorization bearer over here, and the gateway will respond without any, basically this is what we are making a call to the token, a call to actually get an OAuth token and then hand it off to the gateway. What we want to actually reach is to be able to fire this without any tokens and let the gateway take up the responsibility of getting an OAuth token. In this case, it's a client credentials token, and complete the transaction. So let's see how we can do this. So we are now on the gateway. Let's edit the gateway policies. On the request processing, there is a policy called custom extension. So the custom extension is kind of like a fork in the whole execution pipeline. So as the request traverses and reaches the request processing, it reaches out to the external endpoint and makes a call. So for now, in this case, I have to actually call the token endpoint. Okay, so I have the token endpoint over here. So the only thing is that I can't call it as localhost. I have to use the host docker internal, and reason for that is when you reach out from the Docker container to the outside world, you reach it out in this form, host.docker.local, host.docker.internal. You can check it out why this is the case, but you cannot access it as localhost because my OAuth server is running on my host machine and the gateway is running inside Docker. So for now, just understand this is how we are trying to reach out to the token endpoint. So this is the first thing you have to do. You need an endpoint to reach out. The next thing, okay, I'll just open it in full screen mode. The next thing you need is while making this call, you need to pass to it certain information, and what are they? So let's see. So when you call the token endpoint, we have an authorization that we have to pass. So let's pass it in a header. We'll go to header as authorization. The value is the basic. Okay. Now we also have the content type, which is important. Content type. We'll add in the content type as formula encoded. Okay, so that's the header values. Now there is also the body, which is a grant type client credentials. So I'll have to pass that as well. See. I can pass it in the query parameters. Yeah, it's a bit of a, there's quite possible that I'm going to make some mistake on this, but let's see if we can figure it out. Okay, so far so good. So now we've made a call to the token endpoint. We've passed in the authorization basic, passed in content type, we've passed the grant type as client credentials. Let's say OK, and let's say save. So our understanding is at this stage, it will actually make a call to the token endpoint and come back with the token, and subsequently flow down to the native service. Native service is the resource server. So let's jump back into Postman. Let's fire the gateway call. Now you would hope this would work, but this wouldn't still work. And let's see why it is the case. Let's move on to the analytics. So analytics provides good information on what has happened so far. And let's see what's going on. So if you look at the last request, yeah. So, okay, so first of all, we have an error over here because this has gone out. So 405, and with the grant type, this should have actually returned back with a 200. So let's go and check what's wrong with it. We jump over to here, custom extension. Request. Change the post. It was custom. Let's see if this was reason for the 405. Right. 1, 2, fired it twice. Let's jump back onto the analytics, see what's going wrong. Don't remember what exactly is 405. Is it like method is not supported, or let's see. Yeah, so I guess the post was not being sent. So now it's a post request. And as you can see, the call has gone to the token endpoint. It has returned back with a 200 success. However, the subsequent call to the resource server is failed with a 401. Now, what would be your guess on this? Yeah, if you guessed that the authorization token, which has to be forwarded in the form of a bearer token, is not being sent, and that's right. So as you can see over here in the native request, there's no authorization token being forwarded, and that's because the token is just returned back in the body. Now you have to pick up the access token from here and place it on the authorization bearer token, and that's how the request will actually propagate. So let's see how this can be done again on the gateway. So we jump back onto the custom extension, open it up. So far we have done the request processing. We have given in the header value for the authorization. We have passed the body as the grant type. And now what's remaining is actually the response processing. So for the response processing, we're going to actually inject the response into the header, or into the header of authorization. So that's not how you can do it. I'm going to actually, I have my notes over here. So I'm just going to put in over here. Let me just take it. Yeah, so basically what we are seeing is in the response, we are referring to as custom extension on the payload, take a JSON path and extract the value called access token. So our token resides on the attribute called access token, right? So we are actually coming onto the payload, picking up the JSON path, extracting the access token and taking out the value. We are actually putting it over here. Okay, so now there is one more piece of information which I'm missing, is the way to access the variable folder. Let me see if I can get that. Okay, so we're going to actually have to inject the header value in over here. All right, so we have to actually inject in the response, take the payload from that JSON part and the access token, and this has to be injected into the next request header and the authorization. So we're going to send it in an authorization bearer token. This is the service on it on a bearer token. If you come over here, it will be seen as a bearer token. So we're going to inject it on the next request in the headers as an authorization. All right. So this is an expression to actually pull out the access token. Let's put in an OK and save it. Fingers crossed. Let's give this a try. Yep. And as you can see, it has actually executed. It's executed the token endpoint and it has injected it onto the native service. Let's go and check the analytics to see what's happening. Okay. So it's made a call to the OAuth token endpoint to get a client credentials token. Then it's going to make a call to the actual native service and return back with 200. And if you inspect the native call, it has actually injected an authorization header. Yeah, probably authorization as small O is not so great. It's having capital O, but capital A, but it's fine. And this is where the actual bearer token is injected. And the native response comes back as a success. And yep, your response score is 200, and the response is just a text. So, this actually shows you quite a piece of powerful tool that can be used to fork a call in between. I would still urge to use it with caution because the call that goes within the external custom extension is not so easily traceable using the analytics. In the version 10.11 of the gateway, there's a tracing which probably will give you more insights. I've yet to explore it. But at this stage, if you're using it, use it with caution. Part of what I've demonstrated can also be done using mashup. I was not really a big fan of the mashup because for various reasons. Nevertheless, this is one cool functionality on the gateway that allows you to make a fork to get a token and then use it in your native service. So hope this has been useful piece of information. So give it a try and let me know your feedback in the comments. Thank you.